Hello, Leagueies. Welcome back. This is Footy Rants with Benny Matthews, and we are into round 18, the preview. So only a shortened round this week due to Origin. A lot of your Origin stars from your respective clubs will be absent as of this weekend, and the first game we won't be on until tomorrow night. So Friday night, we've got the oldest rivalry in the history of rugby league. So the Sydney Roosters up against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. A couple of stalwart clubs. One of the most successful, or the Rabbitohs are the most successful in history. I think a big important factor to be considered in this matchup is one, the momentum that South Sydney are going to be feeling after that super comprehensive victory over Penrith last week, and two, the lack of Origin stars for the Roosters. So, they're missing Ferguson, Napa, Pearce, and their captain, Cordner. And I think that's going to go a long way to the victory for Souths. Other notable mentions, the last time that this team, I beg your pardon, ran out was against the Raiders during the Origin period earlier in the year. And they actually put up a really good fight. They ended up losing 24-16, but with the possession and lack of ball control shown by the Raiders, they really struggled to finish. It looked like they were going to go on and win quite comfortably, but a bit of a comeback and tenacity and leadership shown by Michael Gordon in that match. So he's sort of my go-to man for the Roosters if they are any chance of stealing this victory. No doubt the involvements of Connor Watson are going to be crucial, and the game management by Luke Keary. He's really got to step up, but I like the fact that the majority of the spine's still intact with Gordon Keary and Jake Friend. Missing Napa is going to be, it's unavoidable that he does have such a big influence on this team. That workload's going to have to be taken up another level by Zane Tedovano, and Jared Ria-Hargreaves has just got to go out and do the job that he's been doing week in, week out alongside Dylan Napa. The Rabbits are 1 from 6 at Allianz, so that's a tick in the box for the Roosters. They've experienced some good success there, and I like this addition of this kid, the mullet, Lindsay Collins, gets his second game, so I hope he gets a bit of game time, bit of a future personality if he keeps that haircut around in 2017. It'll be interesting to see how they use Mitch Cornish. Mentioned last week, I felt that the involvement of Connor Watson off the bench has been rather ineffective by Trent Robinson of late. I'm not too sure what he's thinking or what his loose game plan is as far as utilising him effectively, but I don't think it's been up to the standard. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Mitch Cornish doesn't see too much game time. The only way I can sort of see him coming into the game is if, Jake Friend's still sort of feeling the effects of that massive effort of 65 tackles last week. Despite that, we have a look at this South Sydney lineup. It's as you would expect, no injuries, so no changes to the team that destroyed Penrith last week. But, they aren't having a stellar season. They are still struggling to win those tight matches when they are engaged in them. So, therefore, just based off that, I think this is still going to be quite a close match. It's definitely not out of the realms for the Rabbitohs to go back-to-back wins and big wins again. They can definitely muster up they've got the roster to muster up a 13-plus victory. When you've got a spine of Walker, Sutton, Reynolds, and Robbie Farah, and you've got Damien Cook coming off the bench, as well as the experience of Jason Clark. I thought Dave Tyrrell actually didn't play too badly in his first start for the Rabbitohs this season. I think they'll just be looking to capitalise on the momentum from last week. I didn't think the score really reflected the true performance of Penrith. Like I said, after that horrible pass from Moreland that went astray for Alex Johnston's first try, it was just that the Penrith Panthers, they couldn't overcome that momentum shift, and then Adam Reynolds got his eye in with his kicking game. So if he can keep that consistency back where we're used to seeing it, especially that premiership year, his kicking game both short and long, are phenomenal. Not to mention his accuracy, his placement of that ball just outside that try line is phenomenal, and it's been very, very Australia this year. So if he can dial that back in and repeat that performance to generate that pressure, you're going to limit the opportunities that blokes like Manu and Tupou will get. I don't think shifting Joey Manu out one extra space from that centre to the wing will affect his involvement in the game too greatly. Mitch Orbison, Mr. Fix-It for the Roosters over the years, will slot in there adequately, and I think they'll develop quite a neat little partnership on there. So, you can never write this team off, especially when they're having the season that they are having. Excuse me. But I'd really be looking to exploit this edge and continue to pressure Ryan Madison on that left edge for the Rabbitohs in attack. So yeah, for me, it's going to be a Rabbitohs victory just based off that momentum, and look to Adam Reynolds to steer that ship and the kicking game to continue for them. Alrighty, the second game. This probably presents itself as the most entertaining game of the round in this shortened round. Both sides are pretty well unaffected by Origin, with Manly losing captain Jake Trbojevic is their only loss, and I shouldn't say only loss. He is a massive influence on that side, but yeah, it's been a bit of a rickety-rockety last fortnight for Penrith. They probably, as I said leading into the game, the loss to the Cowboys in the week previous was almost a bit of a grounding week. They didn't have the share of the possession and still only lost by 2 points on the buzzer, so they would have been disappointed that they lost, but at the same time not panic stations. And then to go out there and toss up that performance against South, I think sort of just reiterated that hey, like, we still need to get some sort of system and structure in place that we're falling back on when shit isn't going our way, and I think they really struggle to try and execute on that. A notable omission, Dean Farre out, so we see Tyrone Peachy coming into the starting side at the centres, and then we also see that Fisher Harris has been named in the reserve, so he could make his return after a nasty little knee and hamstring niggles throughout 2017. Mitch Rain comes into the starting side again after missing last week, but due to that change up with Farre and Peachy, the debutant from last week, Sione Katoa, will get his second match in a row. So back-to-back starts in the NRL for the young fella, which, I gave him big reps last week. I was really impressed with what I saw. Just good intensity, and, wasn't intimidated by anyone. I remember starkly him giving Sam Burgess a big old shove at first marker. So, again, you look at this side on paper, there's plenty of potential there, but you can't negate the fact that Manly are a side in form. If we scroll down to their starting lineup, obviously missing Jake Trbojevic, Lewis Brown out, so that sees a little bit of a reshuffle. So Jared Kennedy comes into the starting side in that edge. So that's two back rowers in 2 weeks. So they lost Sirinen the week previous, and now Brown, and Darcy Lussick will fill in that lock role for Trbojevic. So still a super potent back line. Tom Trbojevic right, Dylan Walker, Brian Kelly, and Akili Awate. And the man in the focus at the moment, halfback DCE, having missed out on his opportunity for Origin 3, getting snubbed for Broncos halfback Ben Hunt. This will be a pivotal, point in his career in coming out and proving the fact that, Kevin Walters perhaps made the wrong decision in his selections there. And I know, not only will DCE's performance dictate that, but also Ben Hunt's on Wednesday night. So a lot at stake here. You got Penrith sitting in 9th spot, and there is that little gap between 9th and 8th spot now between Parramatta and Penrith. So there's actually 2 wins there. So another loss for Penrith here, and all of a sudden, this last 2 months, it's going to be extremely tough for them to find their way back into the 8. I definitely am of the opinion that for and against could well and truly decide that 8 position come crunch time at the end of the season. So, if there's any team, I guess you've got to look at it mathematically as well. Manly has experienced a heap of success. So they haven't lost since round 10. But Penrith have won 6 of the last 7 against Manly. So remembering that these stats sort of do come into play a little bit. Both these sides are pretty well full strength, and you just got to lose at some point. And I think that was the case for Penrith a couple of weeks ago. They were experiencing a bit of success after a whole heap of unsuccessful attempts. So I think they, on the back of 5 losses, they went 5 weeks without a loss, and now they're 2 back to back. So big shifts of momentum for this young Penrith outfit. And if anyone is going to overcome this Manly outfit with the attacking prowess that they have, I truly believe it's the Penrith team. If they can isolate Dylan Walker in his ability to attack as they have in the last couple of weeks, that they're always going to be a massive shot at winning. Api Coruscant, it's going to be a really interesting matchup with him up against Mitch Rain. But I think the utility role, so Katoa, as we spoke about, and Cam Cullen, I think whoever can come on and bring that second wave of energy really could spell danger signs for each respective side. So that, for me, it's actually the interchange where we look to at who could really break this game open. Even though we are looking at performances from DCE and a young half Cleary will also be other key matchups. But whoever can come on and just basically help their team out to exploit tired forwards. You've got some big bodies out there in Brenton Lawrence, Marty Tapau. You've got Tamo and Regan Campbell-Gillard. I just like the look of the legs of this younger Manly forward pack to go the distance with Manly. So I'm actually gonna pick Penrith 1-12 to come back into the winners' circle and really stamp their authority in their endeavours to make this run home to the finals for 2017. Alrighty, another big opportunistic game, this time for the Parramatta side. So we have Melbourne up against Parramatta down in Amy Park. Now, Para are 4 from the last 5, 6 if you count the bye that they've had during that origin period. They're only 1 from 4 in Melbourne, and so the Storm have won 6 of their last 8 encounters. But you've only got to look at the top of the screen here and see the list of names that are out in Billy Slater, Cameron Smith, Munster, Cronk, Glasby, and Chambers. So you're losing a lot of firepower there, and add on top of the fact now. So yes, Melbourne undoubtedly have performed well and truly above expectation throughout this origin period, especially considering the amount of players that they've had drawn into the team. So a couple of unexpected starters in Munster and Glasby across the series. But you compound that now with the fact that this is the first time Munster's been absent from that, and he's really provided that little bit of leadership and X factor to make sure that the Melbourne Storm side stay in those games against the Roosters and the Cowboys throughout those 2 games with the absentee Origin players. Still, there is undoubtedly attacking prowess. Chase Blair is back into the side, who brings some experience there, of course. Vunivalu and Adokar, apologies. Great finishes, but I think what tends to happen, you see it quite a lot when you don't have the same halves combination of Munster and Cronk, and more in particularly just the absence of Cronk, the involvement and capacity for Vunivalu and Adokar to be involved. I haven't actually gone back and looked at the stats, but I just know that in those 2 games against the Cowboys and the Roosters, I don't think that either of those guys scored in those games. And that just tells me that that's a little bit about the structure and experience of someone like a Cooper Cronk and his ability to exploit those numbers on his edges and allow those guys to finish in the way that they do. So I honestly believe that without Munster now, so compounding that, and taking into consideration that in the absence of Cameron Smith, they normally bring in Griffin and Brandon Smith. Brandon Smith is out with a broken wrist, so if we look to the reserves there, it doesn't appear that there is any dummy half reserve. So it looks like Slade Griffin's going to be asked to play the full 80, unless there might be some sort of reshuffle where Riley Jacks may go into a hooking role with Tohu Harris coming into the halves as he has done before for Melbourne, but also looking into the reserves and interchange. So Nate Miles set to make his Melbourne Storm debut, but also mid-season trade Robbie Rocco from the South Sydney Rabbitohs was traded for Dean Britt, one of their younger stars who debuted only a couple of weeks ago actually. So it was good to see him get his deserves and get an NRL debut, and I think that's more a testament to the respect that Coach Bellamy has for his hardworking young forwards. Could have easily gone, because no doubt that deal was probably somewhere pending in the works, even when he was set to make his debut. But played it off merits. He represented the Queensland in the residence game earlier in the season and played really well, scored a try in that, and now he finds himself in another NRL system. So just because they're lacking a little bit of experience, don't be surprised if Robbie Rocco does make his Melbourne Storm debut as well, in replacement of potentially Joey Stimson. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Bellamy does there, whether he sort of just holds off on a selection of Rocco for another week. But the fact that he has been named in the reserves, he could really get a crack straight off the bat. Looking over the side of Parramatta, they're unchanged as you would expect, with Mitchell Moses standing up and putting on the performance that he did last week against the Bulldogs. But we can never write the Melbourne Storm off. The ability that we see for them to stick to a structure no matter who's playing in what position, you just can't doubt what they bring to the field as a collective club. It's amazing how they continue just to put the next bloke in position and away you go. Again, it's a little bit of a momentum thing, probably even more so to the extent of in comparison to South, who only just got that win last week. These guys are on a good run at the moment. I think Norman and Moses are really starting to figure out where they belong, and Gutherson, I think, has well and truly cemented his spot at fullback with Bevan French forced out onto that wing. And to be honest, I think he looks better out there anyway. I know I've read a few articles that he still very much has the desire to play one, but I don't know. I think you've got to call a spade at times and sort of just take your medicine and know your role in the team and be happy with that. Much as we've seen with stupid arguments from guys like Jack Bird and Josh Dugan saying they want fullback money. I think that term, positional money. Yes, there's obviously different influences that different positions bring to the game, but yeah, just because you want to play in a certain position, like, you're not the one who monopolises the game. There's only very few players that have that power, and I don't think either of those names govern any of that, especially with the quality of fullbacks that we do have in the game at the moment. But yeah, anyway, that's my sort of little 2 cents on that. Will Smith's been rewarded. He's been re-signed this week, so I think he'll come on board and continue to play that hooking role, and it looks like Cam King will continue to play NRL for the rest of the year. So I think that'll be the only thing that they'll need to make sure that they continue to stand up on. There's no doubting Cam King's fitness. He's always been a jacked little fella, and I think he'll do just fine. But look to the Melbourne Storm to really try and overwork him, especially if some of those experienced forwards find their way into the lineup. But for me, if you just can't rely on Parramatta to swing that momentum for a 13 plus certainty, even though they probably should over course of 80 minutes. And that's what this younger Melbourne Storm outfit's sort of been guilty of during this origin period. But I think they'll make another fist of it, especially with some of those older guys. I think Nate Miles coming off the bench. Say what you will about his form this year, and him getting sacked from the Origin team. I think he's just going to come out and do what he does, and that's just get about some work. And if it's dropping a forearm in someone's face and getting under Kenny Edwards' skin or something like that, if that's the role that he brings, well then I think Bellamy will. It's more a case of so be it. There's still a dangerous forward pack there. Bromwich, Solomona, Kafusi, Tohu Harris, Finucane. If they can continue to isolate Kafusi in some space, there's no reason why they can't wreak some havoc on a rickety Parramatta defensive edge at times. So yeah, I'm tipping a Parramatta victory, but I think it'll be from a much closer perspective than what most people sort of anticipate for the amount of players that Melbourne Storm are missing. Into the final game of the round. Well, it's almost a back-to-back week of desperation for the Tigers, for the Knights after losing to the Tigers last week. Yeah, really, really disappointing. I'm reading articles now that Nathan Brown's under pressure, and I really do feel immensely for the bloke. He's got arguably the hardest job in the NRL at the moment, and I think for their CEO to come out and hammer him and the players' efforts in the way that he did was out of line. No player goes out on the weekend to fucking lose a game. That doesn't matter if you're playing NRL or if you're playing, fourth grade pub footy. Everyone wants to go out and win. Everyone wants to experience success. I don't think it's through lack of trying, and I know sometimes things have to change, but I honestly believe that this whole night situation, it's just a time-based thing that they've got to, it's going to take a little bit, and it might take the money. If they finally do become privatised again and someone buys them out who does have a whole heap of cash and can get that one marquee player over the line that attracts other marquee players, because at the moment they're just losing any sort of decent players that they do have. Compound that with the fact that Mullen was embroiled in that scandal at the start of the year. Everything makes everything harder. You've had to call on these young halves in Brock Lamb, who's been dropped recently, and the underperformance of Trent Hodkinson, who's only just recently come into the starting side again. Jalen Feeney's been finding his feet. Levi, after signing Koschaisen and Bura, Koschaisen still hasn't even played this year. Bura's only just come back last week, so it's a teething process. It's not through lack of trying. It's just desperation and unfortunate circumstances that they're still dwindling where they are in the ladder. And I think they probably just surmounted to the pressure a little bit of being actually expected to beat the Tigers last week. But anyway, getting more into the details of this weekend, the game's being played at Belmore, so this will be a pretty emotional game for Josh Reynolds. We know that he does wear his heart on his sleeve, and this will be the last time that he plays there in a Dogs jersey before he makes his way to the West Tigers next season. But yeah, the Dogs have a terrible record there in recent times. Since returning to Belmore, they've only won one of their last 5. But what they've got to put into perspective now and try and leave emotions aside is that a win here and potential losses for the 9th, 10th and 11th, 11th, 10th being the Warriors, obviously get the 2 points with the bye, but Penrith and the Rabbitohs, if they lose this weekend and the Dogs snag the win, as they're expected to do, despite losing those origin stars we see up there, Morris, Clemmer and Jackson, all of a sudden they're back level pegging, and then they can start to try and rebuild and try and clamber their way into 8th position. I think if they do play finals footy, that's about as high as they're going to get. They're only just going to sneak in there. But you have a look at this lineup. I still think that the Knights are still a chance, despite missing Gagai. He's obviously going to be super influential in his absence. Starling's out as well. But, Fulalo is starting again in the absence of Captain James Graham. I really like Fatala Mariner getting his chance. I think his ball play just on that edge at the moment. Scored a good try, I think it was against the Warriors a fortnight ago. So it's good to see him get his opportunities in the absence of Jackson to New South Wales. But yeah, the Bulldogs just need to click and just really use this as an opportunity to go out there, generate some momentum, and just start to get a little bit more desperate. Both sides are 1 win from their last 6 starts. And Cassiano, he'll get his chance to start. He needs to just be out there and become a wrecking ball. We have a look at this forward pack. I say it every fucking week. It's not a super intimidating NRL forward pack. Saifiti, Josh King, Mataudia, Fitzgibbon, Barnett. Admittedly, these guys in Mataudia, Fitzgibbon and Barnett have probably been the driving force of the middle. They haven't been as damaging up front. Daniel Saifiti, as well as his brother Jacob, have had their moments, but still lacking that consistency at an NRL level. Whereas I feel these guys in the edge back row and Mitch Barnett at lock have really developed that consistency now that has been lacking. And Fitzgibbon's been on fire as far as try scoring ability goes. These guys, other big bodies, Luke Yates and Sam Stone, they've also shown glimpses of the potential that they can reach at an NRL level, and Bureau really needs to come on and lead by example and look to basically grab the game by the scruff of the neck with Trent Hodkinson's. They both played in big games in their careers, and they need to try and elicit some of that experience and inspire some of the younger kids to step up. Um, that they're just as much as responsible for trying to leave some sort of legacy before they end up retiring than it is for these young kids to try and build something of their own. So, yeah, I'd really love for Newcastle to get the upset here, but I think just purely based off the emotional importance and significance that a game has for Josh Reynolds and his sort of lackluster performances since returning over the last couple of weeks. He really needs to turn the corner and help steer this doggy side back onto the park. If they can clean up a few of those fifth tackle options and double down on their execution once Frawley comes into the game, I definitely think they'll be a force to be reckoned with, and could really stack up some points, especially if they can manufacture that forward battle early on. A couple of other damaging stats and areas where I think the Dogs will be too good. I think they'll just defend them out of the game. I think the Dogs will be way too good in defence. Throughout the season, the average for and against is only an 18-14 loss for the Dogs. So they're in just about every game that they play. They're only just getting pipped at the post. So it could quite easily be a completely different story for the Dogs. And it must be so hard being a Dogs fan following that. But yeah, they've only conceded 46 tries this season in comparison to Newcastle 74. So, it's probably a little bit indicative, even though there's only 3 spots on the ladder difference. I think there's 3 wins difference. So, there is that little gap there now, and they're, you're only really writing off probably the Titans, Tigers, and Knights from any sort of finals footy. Otherwise, the door's still slightly ajar for the Bulldogs, Warriors, Penrith, and Souths. So, whichever one of those 4 teams wants to pull up their socks and have a crack, it's now or never, so to speak. So yeah, that brings us to the close for round 18 preview. Not the most exciting games that you'll ever see. It's a little bit disappointing to see what potentially could be blockbuster match. Well, probably not blockbuster is probably the wrong word to use, but just the full effectiveness of a Roosters Rabbitohs encounter. We've spoken a few times, previously with the Storm and Cowboys game being neglected through the Origin period, and but otherwise I think the Penrith Manly game should be a cracker, and I hope Penrith can get back to the form that we had been seeing over the previous 6 weeks, and I think the Storm will put up a good fight too. It'd be really, really interesting. I kind of hope that Rocco gets a crack and see what him and Nate Miles can bring to that Melbourne Storm forward pack. Alright, gang, enjoy your footy, and I shall see you at the start of next week, where we'll review everything, and then we've got previews for State of Origin. So yeah, there'll be plenty of content coming out next week, Rugby League State of Origin week. So there should be 4 podcasts next week. So get ready to buckle in and talk some more footy. Rightio, Benny Matthews, Footy Rants is out. Catches.